Okay, so you can see on this screen that I have my project open, and I have something like 13 inserts for all of the different tracks. This is the kick drum track, and I have it inserted on insert 1, and I have 2 equalizers. You can see something called a sausage fattener in there as well. I'll talk about that later. More importantly, I need to talk to you about equalization, because all those cool filters that make everything sound awesome and sound fatter, they can't help you if you don't EQ it properly. It'll just sound muddy and it'll sound awful. So over here I have my snare insert track right next to it. Fucking time machine. My snare drum track right there. I have them both opened up. Both equalizers open up for my kick and my snare. You can see that on the left is my kick and on the right is my snare track. Those, I'll explain in a moment exactly how that's supposed to go about. The video is just going to take a moment because I haven't set this up properly time-wise. Whatever. Kick, snare, you understand what I'm saying. So the line there visually represents my equalization. That's how I can tell where I'm at with when I'm EQing. You can see on both of them, on the same spot on both, that I have part of the snare raised where part of the kick is lowered. That is to give the snare a little bit of extra air. And you can see when it's actually playing that that's the part where the snare is most powerful. So I lowered that part in the kick just so that I give it a little bit of extra air. And that you have to kind of use your ear. And then if you do equalization properly, it should all be integrated together. So my guitar is on insert number 9. So that's my EQ for my guitar up there above the kick and the snare. You can see that the part where the guitar is powerful, I have lessened on the kick, and I have it still strengthened on the snare, but that's just because it was my personal preference there. It didn't sound as good to remove the good sounds of the snare. But that right there is where it kind of comes in with the writing process, where you might want to pick a different snare, I suppose, if you had that sort of problems where they were overcrowding each other and you couldn't EQ them properly. Now, sub bass is a very, very, very good example of this, because a sub bass has its own very, very, very clear defined area, where it is the sub bass. It is the lowest possible bass. So I drew these lines here. You can see on the far right, that is my sub bass, and the other two are my kick and my snare. The kick and the snare do not touch that sub bass area hardly at all, because they just don't need to. It is so, so low, and if you feel like the kick drum should reach into that area, then you should probably lower your sub bass a little bit, just to give your kick drum a little bit of extra air. I may actually do that on the track to make it sound a little bit better. As doing this video, I thought about that. It would probably be a better idea. But the sausage fattener that I said I would talk about later, I put that on everything. It's like my Frank's Red Hot sauce. I put that shit on everything, and it makes it sound really, really cool. It makes it sound fatter and everything, but if you just put the fattener on it, it's not going to have your desired effect. You can't just fatten it and just be like, perfect. It doesn't mix it for you. You have to use that equalization, or else it's going to sound muddy. It's going to sound bad. That's why I went through and explained all of that. And that's why you want to have all of the different parts of your instruments, especially your drums, separated into different tracks so that you can do that. And that in turn will make your guitar sound a lot better, because it's not being covered up by all this other shit, you know? It's really, really important to practice equalization. Anyway, if you have any other questions, let me know. There are a couple other things that are also in the track. Like on my master track, I have a filter that came with Fruity Loops called Maximus, and that also is going to add a lot of color. That's also some of what you're hearing. The problem with that is I'm not entirely sure how... I haven't looked up whether or not you can actually purchase Maximus and use it with other DAWs, or how expensive Maximus is. I know that the sausage fattener is really, really dope, and it's only $20. So that's why I figured I would show you that, because that's a little bit more useful for you. It was developed by Dada Life, the progressive house producers Dada Life, and it sounds really, really good. All kinds of professional electronic producers and stuff use it. It works really, really well. So anyway, kind of rambling a little bit here. Any other questions, like I said, feel free to ask me. I'm always here. Thanks a bunch. All right, bye-bye.